This incident was located in Lisbon, and we are now also asking residents in Lisbon to shelter in place.
Authorities looking for a 40-year-old guy by the name of Robert Card with an extensive history of mental health issues. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this before we get on to more impactful news. Shooting, at least 22 dead. Manhunt intensifies for this person of interest. Robert Card in Maine apparently went to a couple of different businesses, I think including a bowling alley, killed 22, 50 to 60 injured. Numbers still coming in, but a history of mental health issues. And one of the things we talk about here is we see polling for what it's worth. We talk about wrong direction of the country. When people are asked, how do you feel about the direction of the country? To me, that speaks louder than who's leading in the presidential race, who's doing this. By the way, new Missouri Scout polling shows Trump obviously beaten Biden here in Missouri. More polling continues to show Trump leading Biden. But when you look at those numbers, wrong direction, we've said over and over again, to me, at least personally, that speaks to the collective mood, the collective psyche of our country. Yeah, we're bummed out. We're frustrated. We're depressed because of what's happened since January 20th, 2021. We see what's happening. Porous borders, rising costs. One of our stories, local county. We know several local counties, but especially in one of our local counties, real estate sales, home sales down drastically, like 20+%. They're down. And to me, that says volumes about things. Yeah, we got some mental health issues.
Yeah, the interest rates are horrible. The gas prices are horrible. And so to be like showing up to the same job, feeling like you're doing all you can and doing a good job and knowing that even if I got a raise, it probably isn't, it's not coming close to what I need to be able to afford my, expenses. It's not great. And even if you're doing well, even if you, and 2 years ago you were thinking, man, I am killing it. I'm saving for my kids' college. I'm putting money away for retirement. I'm on this path. Even if you can cover all your bills and you look at it and you're like, man, 3 years ago I was on this, rocket ship to maybe retire early, maybe to help out, the charity that I wanted to help out, maybe to leave, some money behind for my kids, maybe to not have to worry about college. And you're like, what happened to that? I am no longer on that path, and I am hoping that, maybe I can retire before I die.
Yeah, and that affects us because you're thinking about these things when you're doing your budget at the end of the month and you're sitting at the kitchen table or you're on your laptop and you're going, man, this is different. These expenses are different. Or when you have to go to a store and you have to get stuff from a locked case that costs $10 because of thievery, because nobody pushes this stuff real hard. All of those things, seriously, they make you, for just that little moment in time, you get a little frustrated. Dang it, why do I have to go and bug somebody in a store that, by the way, doesn't have enough employees because nobody wants to work because Joe's going to take care of me? You get frustrated there, and then when they go and unlock the thing, and then you're paying a lot for that, and that you get frustrated. And then when you're filling up with gas, and you're going, man, I can't. All those little things, they add up.
Did I hear that you tried to call customer service again the other day?
Check this out.
It's like the third event in recent weeks.
But I called to compliment.
Okay.
A local grocery store.
Good for you.
By the way, it's Hy-Vee. Mm-hmm. I went through the self-checkout. Dang it.
Look at you.
Well, I had problems. Or the stuff wouldn't scan. And this young lady came up. I don't know. She was 22, 23 years old. And she came up and she was bubbly and vivacious. And so here, I'm a crusty 52-year-old white guy always looking for stuff to be angry about, which isn't always true.
Yeah, it is.
She comes up, and it was just an incredibly delightful experience, despite the fact I bought $20 worth of grapes. Since when do grapes cost? I bought 2 bags, $20.
Wow.
Listen, I tried to warn y'all a couple months ago.
Yeah, you
cotton
had those,
candy grapes, and you guys
fancy grapes.
Yeah, you guys made fun of me.
So
Hannah was right about that inflation, I guess, on the grapes. Goodness.
Yep.
Cost of grapes too damn high.
See, but you guys don't have 3 little people who can literally eat all of those grapes in one sitting.
Oh,
so
boy.
I don't. I've learned my lesson. I mean, at least you can ration them.
Wow.
So and she just made what was kind of a frustrating experience. She made it really nice, and we're joking and stuff, and I'm loving it. And I went home and I called Hy-Vee to compliment the young lady.
Good for you.
I bet the boss really enjoyed hearing that.
Well, I think it's nice because Because then what happens is like if you get kind of like somebody says, man, Stephanie Bell and Hannah, producer Hannah at the Rax event last night, they did an incredible job. And then they go to one of the folks in management at Zimmer Radio Group and says, hey, just so you know, when Stephanie was emceeing with Zach Paul, the weather dude from KRCG, she did a really good job. And if somebody calls Stephanie's supervisor here and then it gets back to Stephanie, doesn't that make your day?
Yeah, it sure does.
And if somebody says, man, Hannah was at this event last night and she was meeting and greeting out there front and center, and somebody calls the radio station and says, man, I want you to know about producer Hannah. I want to compliment them. At the end of the day, it makes producer Hannah's day. And that's why I think and we joke about how much I complain about things, but it's my money and I will call and lodge a complaint when necessary.
Absolutely.
But also to compliment, to build people up.
I think that's a good idea. I also think thank you notes are important, which ties in. I think it gets back to manners, but it's so important. You're talking about, these stores being understaffed, and they are. And yes, I have seen it myself at times, bad service. People on their phones, not the least. Some of them don't even want to say, they don't even say hello. I've experienced that. But many, many, many times, I've experienced wonderful service, and they are, whether it's Columbia, Jeff City, Ashland, wherever in our listening area, and they are overworked. There are not enough people to work. It is an issue. It is an issue, and it's something that people need to talk about because I don't know what in the world has happened.
Did you almost say?
I almost said that rhymes similar to heck, but yeah.
It's 6:15 in the morning, and Brian Hauswirth is already dropping almost HE double hockey stick. Stephanie Bell. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, Wake Up Mid-Missouri on YouTube, you can also watch on Facebook. You'll see Stephanie's hiding her face and laughing. Why are you laughing?
I'm so concerned for you. You've been extra cranky lately, and I know you're going on a flight soon.
You're going to make him sit in the back of the plane.
And if there's one place that can really agitate someone, it's the airline experience. So I'm hoping things go smoothly for you coming up.
I'm hoping more for the flight crew's sake, that it goes smoothly for him.
Here's how big I am on customer service. When I'm in a flight to Idaho to go see the grandkids to carve pumpkins, I will knock on the cockpit door. Excuse me, Captain, can you speed this up a little bit? That's how big I am on customer service. Man, Congressman Jason Smith called this on Wake Up Mid-Missouri yesterday.
Rest assured, when you see this afternoon, Mike Johnson will be the next Speaker of the House. You heard it from me.
Marsh, did you wonder, because we asked him twice about that. He said it, and then we said, why are you so sure? Did you wonder for a minute, why is it all of a sudden everybody was so sure about this guy?
Well, for Jason Smith and all, he's been pretty much dead on the money with everything we've followed up with him on, and that's probably a big part of the reason why he chairs the House Ways and Means Committee, but he has a good feel for what's happening on the Hill.
He would, his House Ways and Means. I mean, I assume they whipped. A whip means they counted the numbers. He had to know
beforehand,
to go out like that.
Well, I was going to say a similar thing. Like Mark Alford was all over Twitter the other day saying, Johnson will be the next Speaker of the House. We heard it from multiple people. And Randy Tobler on the Randy Tobler show yesterday afternoon made a good point. And he's like, what happened to get everyone all united? Like, how did they just pull that out of their rear all of a sudden when it's been divided for a couple weeks? What did they do?
Do you think they were just like worn down? Like they want to go home? They want this nightmare to be over? I mean, I know we were all there and said, hey, we got to just get over this. Also, we have this looming budget deadline.
So that's one of the things Congressman Mark
that
Alford.
little thing?
Yeah, that the money in
they're tired of hearing from their constituents because we heard some of the stories on Fox News that they're breaking records for people getting in touch with their representatives on Capitol Hill.
Which is a good thing, man. Get involved. Congressman Alford, he joins us. Be here at 6:35. You can hear from the congressman himself, and we'll spend some time on the speaker race. But one of the other things we do want to talk about, what have we been missing? Because we've had the speaker race, we've had Israel. There's some other things that we need to be paying attention to.
Social Security is one of them. Take a look at the Washington Post article that they've written about Mike Johnson. I think you guys will find it intriguing.
Two big reasons. I like this guy. And Stephanie brought up the point yesterday. Why haven't we heard more about this guy? And now that I'm hearing, yeah, how come we haven't? Here's one of the big things. I really like this guy. This is why I think he will be effective for the Republican Party and why I think ultimately he'll be effective for all Americans.
We're going to tell them what we're for, what agenda we are pursuing, and why it is best for every American, why it will give them more liberty, opportunity, and security. We're going to speak to that clearly. We're going to act consistently, and we're going to exhibit two things here, trust and teamwork.
Why? Why? It's one of the things we try to hang our hat here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So we say this stuff when we talk about Biden and the border and finances and things like that. We're not doing it to just be complaining about the President of the United States of America. We try to explain, okay, this is why it's going to matter. This is how it's going to affect you. And I love the fact that Congressman and now Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, said that. He says, we're going to explain to the American people why this matters. And I believe for a long time, if they would spend less time sending out hot tweets and getting on the TVs and trashing this congressman and that lawmaker, and Trump did this 5 years ago, and Joe Biden, if they spent more time saying, this is why this matters, this is why it affects you. And guess what else about Mike Johnson, besides being obviously a staunch opponent of abortion, besides being a good conservative? Guess what else about Mike Johnson?
He is a lawyer, and he was a radio host.
So, how about that?
There's a combo.
Right?
We don't see that too often. Unfortunately, we have been blessed to have Stephanie Bell, who is an extremely successful attorney, Ellinger Bell in Jefferson City, and an extremely successful talk show host. Something she has in common with Mike Johnson. One of the other things he talked about, 7 core values that are American ideas, and I love that because we talk about conservative ideas. These aren't conservative ideas. They are simply American ideas. Coming up 5 minutes from now, we're going to be doing the daily D.C. rundown.
Well, Trump, I think we got to count up to 6 that he had been in the courtroom 6 times in the civil fraud trial, but yesterday he was actually asked questions by the judge, called to the witness stand.
And it got a little different. What happened? Don't miss this. It's coming up 5 minutes from now on the daily D.C. rundown.
very loud, but he's a totally discredited witness, and you haven't seen anything yet.
Donald Trump yesterday talking about Michael Cohen taking the stand yesterday, and Trump was not kidding. You ain't seen nothing yet. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
I wonder every day what it would be like to be Trump's lawyer and to try to get him to just be quiet sometimes. He actually was abruptly called to the witness stand yesterday in this trial. He has been kind of sitting and watching. He's been voluntarily attending some of these court proceedings. Yesterday, the judge called him to the witness stand. He was fined $10,000. If you recall, he had made some remarks about the judge's staff, and the judge issued a gag order and was like, don't talk about my staff. Well, I guess Trump said something about a person who's very partisan sitting alongside the judge. And the judge was like, I told you not to do that. We're going to, fine you for that. His lawyers tried to argue. He was actually talking about Cohen, and there was some argument about who was closer to the judge. And anyway, the judge said, you're fined.
$10,000. Of course, that's going to set Trump back a bit.
No, he will probably continue to speak out, and his lawyers will probably continue to be frustrated with him. Also, we're hearing about another criminal matter. Representative Jamal Bowman has formally been charged for pulling the fire alarm. Thank goodness. I mean, there should have been ramifications for him. He's expected to plead guilty. He will have to formally apologize. Do we care if people formally apologize? I noticed that was like Sidney Powell has to write a letter to the people of Georgia. Jenna Ellis does.
Like elementary school punishment.
Yeah. What's up with all these formal apologies? Like, I don't get it.
Here's a better idea, I think. Put a chalkboard, a house floor, and have Jamal Bowman get up there and write 200 times. I'm sorry for being a moron and pulling a fire alarm.
That'd be good.
Well, and I think it was a texter that told us he used to be like a high school principal. So it's not like, he's seen people prank and pull fire alarms. So he knew what he was doing. He wasn't just trying to open a door that he couldn't get into. And Mark Alford told us, yeah, that door was closed. So I went the other way. I didn't pull the fire alarm. Anyway, he's got to formally apologize, pay a $1,000 fine, and serve 3 months of fire alarm probation. So I'm glad to hear at least something's happening there. Also, China's top diplomat visits Washington this week. They are expected to have 3 days of meetings. They expect Antony Blinken to urge China to play more of a constructive role in the Israel, Hamas, and Russia-Ukraine wars. Obviously, we've seen a lot of... Yeah, China has been assisting Russia in ways that make everybody uncomfortable. And I don't think 3 meetings with the Biden administration, or 3 days with the Biden administration is really... I don't see us getting anywhere with that.
And the problems for Biden are becoming astonishingly difficult to solve. As a matter of fact, when you have the governor of California trying to soothe relations over he went talk to Xi Jinping, when you have that happening, that amplifies. Yeah, there's problems with his administration and ultimately problems for us as the American folks.
And I'm wondering what our local car dealers are saying about this UAW strike. It has been going on for nearly 6 weeks. But yesterday, the UAW said it's reached a tentative contract agreement with Ford. Now, that's important because it could serve as kind of a sample agreement for the other 2 automakers and get things really moving. This is a 4-year deal. It has not yet been approved by all of the union members, but it is expected to be.
individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity.
Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Republican Congressman from Louisiana. I love that. 7 core American values, 7 core American ideas, not just conservative ideas. Congressman Mark Alford joining us right now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, John Marsh, Brian Hauswirth, Congressman Mark Alford. Let me ask you this. Because Stephanie said this on the show yesterday, after we're hearing and learning more about this guy, why didn't we know more about this guy before? Why didn't we know about him, and what is it that you're liking about Mr. Johnson?
Well, good morning, Branden, and congratulations on your transition to a new career. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. But, look, Mike has been a stalwart in our conference and in our body for some time. He's just been a quiet, reserved, thoughtful person, and thoughtful people, quite frankly, in Congress, where everyone's trying to stand out a little bit, you're kind of in the background. And I think that's how Mike, our speaker now, look, he's from Louisiana, and I love a good gumbo. I liken our conference to a gumbo. Mike is the roux that's going to hold everything together. He wants us to be the peppers, the chicken, the andouille sausage, the shrimp in this gumbo. And he wants us to get the credit and build our conference and our body together. He is satisfied by being the roux. The roux by itself is pretty bland, but he doesn't care about the accolades. He doesn't care about the attention. He is there for a purpose. He believes that God has put him there at this time and at this place for our country. And if you watch the speech from yesterday, it is so different than what Kevin McCarthy did back in January. I believe his tone and tenor are what we need today. It's not attacking the Democrats. In fact, some of the Democrats, there were parts of his speech yesterday where they got up and applauded. So this is what we need. And I've been saying this, Branden, you know me, less yelling at each other and more listening, trying to find common ground where we can, but not compromise our core principles.
Now, I think I saw on your Twitter that I think you referred to him as your friend. Tell us about your interaction. You're newer. What was your first interaction with him?
Well, we have a couple of things in common. We're both vertically challenged, about the same height. In fact, I started, everyone has a caucus here, and I started the Eye to Eye caucus, where members of our same stature see eye to eye, not just physically, but also spiritually and on our political viewpoints. But that's kind of a joke to some degree. Mike and I have a common bond in I think, our faith in Jesus Christ. It was evident from the way he conducted himself through this whole process. You know, behind closed doors, all this week, it's been a painful process, long into the night, trying to select a speaker. And Mike lost a round or two. And after Tom Emmert could not get the 217 votes behind closed door and dropped out, Mike was back in the race. And when he lost to Tom Emmert originally, he gave one of the best heartfelt congratulations to Tom, said he would support him. And his demeanor, I think, has catapulted him. People realize there's something different about Mike Johnson.
All right, Congressman Mark Alford joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Congressman, talk to us about the what next is funding for Israel's war and, gosh, getting the government back on track and all that. What's the time frame on that now?
We are in full gear. We're getting started early this morning. We've got to do battle for the American people. We've got to support Israel. Yesterday, one of the first orders of business after Mike was sworn in, we took a little bit of break. We came back and we did pass a resolution. I think it was 425 or even better than that. I don't know the final vote, but to support Israel unconditionally and condemn Hamas. We needed to do that to send a clear message that the House of Representatives is on the side of Israel. Next is a funding package. We've got to make sure that that funding for Israel is separate from the funding for Ukraine. Two very different issues going on there. We've got to take up these 8 remaining appropriation bills. And I was privy to a meeting yesterday where they're trying to figure out the schedule on that. We are going to come home for a short time this weekend, but return early, I think, to get to work for that. Our continuing resolution ends November 17th. We don't have time to waste. And our Speaker, Mike Johnson, knows that. Steve Scalise, by the way, our majority leader, who puts the scheduling together and introduces things on the floor, has the floor schedule, he has not stopped working through all this 3 weeks. He has everything lined up, ready to go. We just couldn't get going until we had a speaker, and now we have a speaker.
Congressman, we appreciate you joining us live. 2 pretty quick questions here that are both very important. One you wrote about just about a week ago, and of course yesterday. What are the chances of getting the new speaker, Mike Johnson, to Columbia or Sedalia or to your district? And 2, but unrelated, but you just sent a letter to the Secretary of the Army about asbestos in lead-based paint in military housing. What's the status on that?
Well, first off, it's too early to ask the speaker to come help me out in my district, but I will be glad to do that. I think in the future he is committed to going to every district that he has not been in yet. A part of the job of the speaker is to know each district, and I think that's one thing Kevin McCarthy was very good at. You know, he came and helped me out 2 years ago in St. Louis, and we did not technically dip into our district, but he did help me, and I think he had a clear understanding of the districts. As far as this issue with military housing, look, I am on the House Armed Services Committee. I am on the Military Personnel Subcommittee. I'm also on the Quality of Life panel that General Bacon on our committee has put together. And this is a very serious issue. Housing is in a deficit position for our families, the military housing that our families live in, but also our barracks situation. And so we're working. We know there are issues with that. We're trying to get the funding to correct those. We've helped, along with Josh Hawley, to secure $50 million worth of funding in the National Defense Authorization Act for housing at Fort Leonard Wood. So we are aware of the problems. We don't want anyone in our military living in substandard conditions. And the Secretary of the Army, the Undersecretary that's over housing, I had a private meeting with her 2 weeks ago. She was here in D.C., and we talked about these issues. I'm glad that this is coming to light, but we've got to make sure that there are plans in place to modernize our housing and make sure it's safe for everyone.
All right, Congressman Mark Alford joining us on the show. A lot of attention being paid to Israel, the Democrats' pathetic response in a lot of cases to what's happening there. Obviously, a lot of attention focused on the speaker race. In your mind, what are a couple of big things that we as Americans and Missourians have been missing because of the focus on these other issues?
Well, I think first and foremost, in my mind, is the border. And I know we've talked about it a lot, but we are seeing day after day the consequences of the Biden administration's lax policies, allowing our border to basically remain open, and then gaslighting the American people, saying that there's no crisis. You know, when 7 million illegal aliens come across a border into a sovereign nation, it makes a difference. It makes a difference on our culture. It makes a difference on our economy. It makes a difference when 107,000 people are basically poisoned with fentanyl that's come across that border. And it makes a difference, I think, to our attitude as Americans. Look, we want legal immigration in America, people to contribute to the fabric of America. But our fabric is being ripped apart by this illegal immigration and a broken down amnesty system. So I think that's one thing we are going to be addressing. We did pass the border security bill. We're going to try to maybe attach that to some other funding bills when we get in negotiations with the Senate. The other thing we have to do, I've already mentioned, is passing these 8 appropriation bills, and that includes some very serious cuts in some areas, but also supporting our military. That we have we just had a subcommittee meeting yesterday on our submarine force. Are we ready to take on China if we need to? We have a deficit in the number of submarines and other aircraft and seacraft that we need to catch up with. And I think another really important thing that we need to be focused on is the unity issue that we have in America. And I think Mike Johnson is going to work on that as we come together and we start listening rather than just talking. I said this week, we need to not just elect a Speaker of the House, but we need to elect a listener of the House, and that's what we have now.
By the way, one of the folks on your staff, Austin, has always been incredibly helpful and prompt to us, and I'm only mentioning it because so an inside kind of point of view for folks listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning does not always happen when we're dealing with folks in Washington, D.C. Wanted to give kudos to him. Congressman Mark Alford, anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go, sir?
Well, Brandon, I just want to congratulate you on a great career there. 2 years ago, I stepped down from a very similar morning position. Mine was on TV, and yours is on radio. I know you're going to do great. And my words of advice for you, just always be yourself, be honest, be true to who you are. And some people won't like you. That's okay. They don't have to like you. They just have to respect you.
Well, I'm used to it. I've worked with Hannah and Stephanie for several years now. So
Wow.
Man.
By the way, Congressman Mark Alford has a podcast that's going to start airing on one of our radio stations here on the network. That's going to start airing, and it's really good, by the way. Otherwise, we would not be carrying it. It's going to be airing Sundays, 2:00. So make sure you start checking that out.
Thank you.
Sundays.
Our guest this week, we're taping this today with Steve Scalise. You were going to hear his entire story about the assassination attempt at the baseball field, his battle now with blood cancer, and his battle this month for the Speaker of the House position. It's going to be a very intriguing interview.
Congressman Mark Alford, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We're appreciative of your time.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, by the way, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe is here. We've got some rain over a period of several days. But what about the drought and how is it affecting Missouri's biggest industry? Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe here at 7:35. Coming up a few minutes from now. How long before your phone is All right, so worst day in 9 months. How is it going to be looking this morning? Stephanie Bell is going to cover that for you. Morning Bell. She'll look at your opening numbers. That's coming up at 8:25. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, producer Hannah Bryan, Hauswirth. I am Branden Rathert. One of the things I think that we've been fans of here on the show for a long time, getting involved, whether it's Stephanie Bell emceeing the RACS event and producer Hannah being there to help out last night, getting involved with your community. So I wanted to bring in real quick Debbie Portell, Caring Hearts and Hands of Columbia, because there's an event coming up this weekend. First of all, Debbie, what is Caring Hearts and Hands?
Caring Hearts and Hands is an end-of-life care home. We are a 501c3, and we care for people in the last 30 days of life who are referred to us by hospice agencies. We just opened our home in May, and to date, we have had about 27 guests. This is all at no cost to our guests.
And it's important work that you do because obviously not everybody is so situated that, hey, we're going to, do end-of-life care in a retirement facility. So what can we do to help?
Well, we're having our third annual fundraiser called Lights for Love, and it's a luminary event. It will be at Bethel Park this Saturday, the 28th, from 6 to 8 p.m., rain or shine. People are encouraged to donate $20 to purchase a luminary in memory of someone they've loved and lost. The luminaries will be lining the sidewalk around the lake. Music will be provided. Refreshments are available. We hope it's just a beautiful night with no rain. We don't mind the cold, but rain or shine, we will be there.
It'll be a perfect fall evening, and that is a beautiful sight, by the way, when you do these luminary events, and it's $20, and you're out hanging out with other folks in the community. Going to be an amazing event. If we want to learn more about your event for Caring Hearts and Hands, is there a website somewhere we can go to get more info?
Yes, we have a website, and I'd love for people to learn more about our mission and consider volunteering at the house. Our email address, or our website address, is caringheartsingular.hands.org.
Thank you. So you get on your cell phone. All right, Debbie, thank you for your time. We appreciate what you do. You can get on your smartphone right now and punch in that website and see how you can help. Very important thing. By the way, how long have you had your cell phone, Steph?
This one, 4 weeks, 3 weeks.
4 weeks. Producer Hannah, how long you had your phone?
I just looked this morning, and it's been 18 months.
18 months. Marsh, what about you?
Couple months.
Yeah, me too. I got a new phone after 7 years almost. And that's not a good idea. We're going to tell you why. So,
well, it's not a good idea if you don't adapt well to change.
There's that. You are correct.
Your phone was so old, it still had the circle headphone jack.
So when I went and got this phone, I bought it and went through the process. And I realized I'm going to the gym and I'm going to listen to my stuff on the phone. And I'm like, there's no phone jack. Who the heck sells a phone and there's no headphone jack in this phone? I went down to Verizon.
You couldn't find the hole?
I couldn't find the hole.
Oh, no.
I stormed down to the Verizon store and I walk in. Hey, you guys sold me a phone. There's no headphone jack. I can't find the hole on this thing.
And they said there hasn't been one of those for 7 years.
Bingo.
Get you a dongle.
Yeah. So I did that. Actually, it ended up getting some real nice wireless ones at the suggestion. Earbuds.
Welcome to 2023.
At the suggestion of Steph. So which phones on average now I had the phone. It was a Samsung Galaxy S8. And the model they're up to now is 23. That's the one I have. Gives you an idea. The winner for longevity on average, iPhones. 4 to 8 years. Huh. Second place, Samsung. And then there's something called Hawaii.
Has anyone ever had an iPhone for 8 years? Absolutely not. No way.
Yeah.
hundreds of police officers working around the state of Maine to investigate this case?
We're certainly not used to this, and certainly not used to this kind of police presence, and it's just a remarkable day in all the wrong reasons, for all the wrong reasons.
A vehicle, which was a vehicle of interest in this incident, was located in Lisbon, and we are now also asking residents in Lisbon to shelter in place.
Kyla looking for a history of mental health issues, and I always go back to one of the things we talk about a lot on the show, polling for what it's worth, but we talk about the right track, wrong direction of the country, and yeah, people are bummed out. They for sure are, whether it's because of prices, whatever's going on. They're worried about the border. They're worried about their young kids getting a hold of the fentanyl that comes through the porous border. Yeah, folks are worried. Folks have some mental issues. And I do want to mention there's a local state lawmaker, Doug Mann, who ran. He was elected about a year ago, sworn in to the Missouri House of Representatives. And he has said, I am stepping down less than a year into his term. He says he's going to step down for mental health issues. So you can see how these things affect people. And did get an interesting text that I want to share before we get on to these problems that are happening for Biden, and they are becoming increasingly difficult for him to solve. But one of our listeners sent us a text earlier saying, hey, I'm not about government spending and things like that, but I wonder, could we do some more things on the front end? And we can look around locally. I know there's been an effort underway in Boone County, and I do see there is some reasonableness in this. And say, like, somebody goes to jail, they get picked up for something, and you look at the number of folks that oftentimes when they're picked up, they're arrested. A lot of these folks, they have drug and alcohol issues, they have mental health issues. And so the thought is, in an effort to save taxpayers' money in the long term, the thought is, what if when we get some of these people right away, if maybe we said, hey, we can offer some mental health counseling, or we can try to offer something, and then that way we don't keep rearresting you, we don't keep giving you 3 hots in a cot, we don't keep putting out resources because you're not getting help for the initial problem. And I gotta tell you, I'm okay with that. I really am. If it saves money in the long term, I am okay with that.
Well, and I think, what we've seen from the last several years, the mental health issues have just become so much. I mean, a lot of people struggled in COVID, and it kind of amplified struggles people were already having, and the isolation. And even for people who weren't struggling before, I think the isolation was hard on everybody. And so I think it's becoming it's just becoming way more serious. And I think we were ill-equipped with the amount of mental health resources we would need. And then also I think people who weren't used to experiencing that kind of isolation and issues weren't fully informed on where they could go to get, resources that they needed.
Yeah. Look at all the people warehoused in prisons. I mean, that's the main population of prisons across the U.S. is people on drug charges, most of them nonviolent ones.
Yeah, and if so, we get folks some help on the front end, maybe long term, that will save us as taxpayers, save us some money. And the other thing, we look at Missouri's number one industry, the biggest income revenue generator in the state of Missouri is agriculture. And Marsh, I know you help out farmers, man, what they're facing because of this drought, for example.
It's been a rough year.
It's been a rough year. As a matter of fact, Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, he's going to be joining us 7:35 to talk about the drought, the potential impacts on that. And the other thing, so then when you have drought and you have farmers that are here in Missouri putting out less money, there's less money that's being paid to people. And then when you go to the grocery store to go buy stuff, a lot of that stuff costs more. Lieutenant Governor Kehoe here, 7:35 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And I want to mention this real quick, too. Kudos to Hilly and Hart morning show on our country
station.
How
about that?
Can we give them a big round of applause? Wow. We're hoping they get an opportunity to check in this morning, but I mentioned it for 2 reasons. We talk about small local businesses and local radio, and why local radio matters, whether it's weather. We inform folks, hey, weather's about to go south. Look at the tornado a couple of years ago, and look at and not just us here at Zimmer, but radio nationwide, small local radio. There's a dude by the name of Guglielmo Marconi.
Well, there was.
There was, you're correct. He'd been gone for a little bit. But he is the guy, Guglielmo Marconi, he is the guy who invented radio. And every year there's an award show. Is it Hannah, would you akin to the Oscars, maybe?
Yeah, it's like the radio version of winning an Oscar or winning a Grammy. It's basically the biggest honor you can get in the broadcast industry.
Yeah. And there was a huge award show last night in Hillian Hart from Cat Country, one of our country stations. They flew out to New York. They got into a cab, checked into a hotel room. They got all duffied up. They looked as good as producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell did last night at the Rackscallop. By the way, pictures of that on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri Facebook page. And they go to the thing, and you're talking about radio stations all across the country. And they narrowed it down to some finalists, and you've got Hillian Hart, our finalist. Holy cow, they won. Man.
It was great. So we have a little Ladios group chat, and so we had been kind of getting updates from Erin all day, and I knew she was really nervous, and we had been rooting her on. And so when we finally got the news last night that they won the award, it was so exciting. And I've seen her Facebook. She said she cried on stage, but how can you not? I mean, it's the highest recognition you can get in the industry, and it's just so exciting to see them get it.
And last year we had a couple of coworkers get awards too. KCMQ down the hall and Kristen from Y107. So we got a pretty good track record with the Marconis.
So funny story. One of our stations a few years ago was up for Talk Station of the Year. And I was new to radio, had never heard of a Marconi Award. And I get this text message, and I'm in a big group text, and people are telling me congratulations for being nominated for a Marconi. I definitely read it as a macaroni. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting at home going, what the hell's a macaroni award? And why are all these people telling me congratulations?
So congratulations. We've said, so they're in cabs now trying to fly out this morning. Hopefully they'll be able to check in for just a few minutes here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, John Marsh, Brian Hauswirth. I am Branden Rathert. We have a new Speaker of the House, and I'll echo Stephanie Bell's sentiments from yesterday. Why hadn't we not heard about Mike Johnson before? Wow. He's a former attorney, former talk show host on the radio, and here's two things that I really love about what this guy said. Now, it was a speech. I grew up mostly in Missouri. I'm all about show me state, show me. It was a great speech, and hopefully he will show us. But here's two things that impressed me about this guy. Is number one, he said, we're going to explain why our policies, we're going to explain why they matter. And I am such a big fan of that because of talk radio, because for years I hear a lot of people on talk radio, nobody in this building or in this room, but they complain, this, and that. Okay, but explain to me, tell me why it matters. Tell me how it's going to affect me. And it served us very well here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. He said that yesterday. We got to explain to the American folks why these things matter. The other thing that he said was, and I'm a big fan of this, I say this all the time, it's not conservative values. It's real, simple American values.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for him. I think I'm a little nervous.
You're right, just wait.
I'm nervous about that, but I think, where conservatives have really seen some criticism is on the spending. And when, I don't know a whole lot about him, but what I know is he's more socially conservative. And I would have loved to see someone who's a little bit more fiscally conservative be at the top of the party. And so on those issues, I hear he's really, on issues like abortion, on issues surrounding trans issues, on all of that, I hear he's, very Christian, very conservative on that. But I think where I'd like to see some movement is some more fiscally conservative decisions made in Congress. And so I wonder, and we've talked about this, where is the future of our party? Is it more libertarian? Is it more socially conservative? And I think this is maybe one indicator that our party is right now in that social conservative space. Maybe it's not, but I think I'm going to hold my breath and see how those policies start coming out and how this next deadline is handled before I give him the Stephanie stamp of approval.
Fingers crossed that he gets the Stephanie stamp of approval. Disappointed that...
It's pretty hard to get that stamp.
Very.
I'm still trying to get it.
2.5 years. We've been trying to get it. So disappointed to see somebody from Biden's party, Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, in his speech, in introducing Mike Johnson, he talked about how much strife we've been through with the Civil War, the Great Depression, the Empire of Nazi Germany, September 11th, 2001.
We faced adversity right here in the House of Representatives. when on January 6, 2021, a violent mob...
He brought that crap up. That's going to be a problem for Biden and Democrats. There are other problems. By the way, interestingly enough, you know what he did not bring up? He brought up Civil War, Nazi Germany, September 11th, the Great Depression. He did not bring up January the 20th of 2021. Do you remember what happened January 20th of 2021?
Do I have to?
Nothing good.
Biden was sworn in. I always thought I was curious as to why Hakeem Jeffries did not bring that up. He also did not bring up August 26th of 2021 when President Magoo's ineptness on a worldwide stage killed 13 of our U.S. service members. There's other problems for the president. But I think this is more important right now. I want to say hello to Jody, who is in Fulton this morning regarding mental health issues. Jody, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to add a comment to what your conversation earlier. You know, by providing those mental health services while they're incarcerated initially, you know, you're not just saving tax dollars down the road, but you're also, hopefully, if they accept the help that is offered to them, you know, you're putting back into society wholesome people who are able to actually contribute, you know, instead of drain the resources of the community, that they're actually contributing back into society and they're whole themselves.
How about
so it's a win-win for everybody.
Man, Jody, thank you so much. We appreciate you listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri in Fulton this morning.
Thanks.
You bet. That's a really good point. One of the texter is hot this morning, 874-9390. We talked about the average lifespan of a phone, and the winner is?
I think the iPhone 5S.
So we've got some folks. This is kind of interesting as we talked about crusty old pillows. And that would be all except for this, which John's going to be doing again this morning, 7:50. We got talking about old things that you own, but phones. And folks have been texting about that. Some of the old phones that folks have out there. We're going to be covering that here on the show this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up 7:25-ish, we are doing What's Hot with Hannah.
This firefighter just wanted some fries with that.
That's coming up 5 minutes from now. On for What's Hot with Hannah.
This is a first responder story. It's maybe not the best first responder story, but it's kind of funny. I found it entertaining. We're going to Washington, D.C., where there's other not so funny but slightly entertaining things happening. And these two firefighters back in March got in trouble because a medical call came out for a woman with chest pains. They were less than a mile away from the address at which the emergency was taking place, but they made a pit stop on the way to the call, and it was Chick-fil-A.
Totally worth it, though.
Yeah, they said, well, we're less than a mile away from this lady. We've already placed our order on the Chick-fil-A mobile app before the call came through from dispatch. So we're just going to stop and pick up our order real fast and then go help the lady with chest pains.
How did it work out for them?
It didn't very well. Like I said, that happened in March. And it recently came out. They'd been under investigation for the last several months. And a spokesperson with the D.C. Fire Department, all they could say was they're no longer firefighter EMTs with the department.
No longer with the company. We have changed their employment status.
Yeah. But I just...
Wishing them their best with their future endeavors.
Right? But yeah, they got toned out because they were the closest unit. And the guy said they stopped, quote, literally for a few minutes, tops, unquote.
Is the woman okay who had the heart?
I don't know. I don't know.
Let's assume so.
Yeah. I'm wondering how that lady feels. You know, you call 911 hoping for a quick response because, you know, you typically call 911 when it's one of the worst days of your life.
Yeah.
And they showed up with waffle fries.
And Marsh, you're kind of familiar with some of the workings of the 911 dispatcher, the life of a 911 dispatcher. A couple of years ago, Hauswirth and I toured a local 911 dispatch facility. Chris Kelly, Boone County Emergency Operations Center, was kind enough to let us see how it works, the inner workings. And we talk about first responders. We talk about, like, you know, producer Hannah's husband, who's a volunteer firefighter. We talk about police officers and EMTs. But a first responder, before EMT goes out, before law enforcement goes out, before a fire engine goes out, who gets the very first call?
Dispatch.
Yeah, 911 operators. And this facility is just remarkable. And it's like other facilities that I've seen in the past. Like they have what you might call a decompression room because the stress of a 911 dispatcher.
It's tough duty.
Yeah, because you're hearing all kinds of different stuff from people on their worst days. And now, when I call 911, I'm freaking out here, now, problems. And the dispatcher's job is, okay, there's a problem. I need you to calm down for a second so I can get the proper information.
That's right. And did you hear the fun fact about our new Speaker of the House, Hannah?
I didn't.
All right. His dad was a firefighter. He founded the nonprofit organization, the Percy R. Johnson Burn Foundation, after his partner was who died in the line of duty. And Johnson's father was also critically burned and disabled in the line of duty fighting the same fire. So we've heard all of the different connections we have to the new speaker, but dad was a firefighter. He's a lawyer. He was a radio host, but I thought that was really interesting and probably shaping his early life.
This article, though, reminds me of, you ever had to show up late to a meeting and you've got like a coffee or something and you just feel like a total turd?
Is that Raymond?
Are you looking at me?
I am looking at you, Miss Bell.
I've never stopped for Chick-fil-A.
It's so embarrassing when it happens. You think you have enough time to run through a drive-thru before a meeting and you end up being a couple minutes late and you show up with a coffee or something silly.
That's why you got to bring stuff for the rest of us.
Yeah.
New House Speaker Mike Johnson, by the way.
and they can't afford what we're asking for.
So even the United Auto Workers doesn't like KJP. Corinne Jean, it wasn't KJP, KTP. All right. Sean Fain, President United Auto Workers Union. They and Ford are apparently coming close to an agreement, and then apparently other automakers would follow. But Stephanie brought up an interesting point in the Morning Bell, Daily DC Rundown. We do every morning, 6:25, just what's happening in DC or the big stories and the political implications. What about the local car dealers, car salesmen? I know that I have been affected a little bit. Part that I need for my car, thank goodness they found one. But they told me over the weekend, like, hey, you need this part. And meanwhile, I can get pulled over if I don't have it. But they said, we don't know when it's coming. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
Mr. Marsh is here.
Yep.
My name is Branden Rathert. Our Lieutenant Governor, Mike Kehoe, is joining us on the show. I might ask you about that, Mr. Kehoe. I know you were in the car industry. You're also in the ag industry, and one of the things that you do in the Lieutenant Governor's office, we pay attention to our number one. Our number one generates more money in Missouri than just about anything else. We're talking about agriculture, how the drought is affecting that. So from your point of view, having worked in the automobile industry, how in strikes in the past on a national level, how does that trickle down? Does that affect local car dealerships?
Well, first of all, it's good to be on with you, Branden. And, I used to never want to correct you, but now that you're a short timer, I don't feel correcting you is a bad thing anymore. It's KTP, Kentucky Truck Plant. KTP.
KTP,
No, she's horrible.
Not Corinne.
Kentucky Truck Plant builds some of the best-selling vehicles in the world. So, as a Ford dealer, we want to keep KTP separated from the Biden spokesperson lady.
KJP.
Thank you. So anyway, yes, it affects the dealers exactly what you just said. Inventory levels, dealers have figured out how to manage that, through the COVID craziness and different things of up and down levels. But the parts for repairs is where the big problem comes. So I'd be super happy to see. I'm still involved with the business. I'd be super happy to see Ford get together. Looks like this morning they're pretty optimistic that they're gonna get this figured out, and so we can get customers back on the road, cars fixed, all across the world, obviously, including here in Mid-Missouri. So I'm hopeful that settlement is done and we can move on.
All right. And I know one of the things in the news that Brian Hauswirth and John Marsh have been covering, this drought as it's affecting Missouri, and it matters. I think so it's dry. I've got more sunny days. It's affecting the agriculture industry. Can you tell us where we are with Missouri's number one industry because of the drought?
Yeah, I'd be happy to give you an update. I was, incredibly honored yesterday to be at the University of Missouri, where the Extension Office awarded me the Gordon Warren Land Grant Award. It's an award that goes to ag leaders and people who work in the ag industry to protect our number one industry and our family farms across the state. But because of that award, I was able to visit with Extension folks from all over the state. We have 114 counties and about 112 Extension offices, and the drought specifically is what we talked about. It's come back. So we had a little relief there at the end of July and August across the state, not enough to solve the problem. But the drought issue really is affecting cattle ranchers right now, which, as you know, we're in our 39th year of beef production at our farm. The row crop guys seem to have got out of the ground, got harvested, or the dry weather probably helped them a little bit get things out of the field. But if you're relying on pasture for cattle, and we're number 2 in the United States in beef cattle production, so we have a lot of cow-calf operations out there, the drought is really hurting them. We don't have fall pasture. If you don't have fall pasture, you're not going to have winter pasture. So hay has become incredibly short across the state. I've actually bought loads out of Nebraska to try to get caught up. So it's going to be a tough winter for anybody in the livestock end of the business, mainly cattle. So we're very much watching that. The federal government and the state have several different programs. I would encourage all of your listeners who are producers to talk to their university extension office. They're working very closely with our farm service agencies with the U.S. and to ask what relief and programs are out there, because they're going to need help. Department of Ag also has a hay kind of hotline, an area where you can go to a website and see if there's any hay for sale in the state. I will just warn you in advance, it's short. But it's going to be a long winter for the cattle producers. I can tell you that.
And then at the end of the line, when I go, or when you go to when anybody goes to the grocery store, and you're seeing the cost of beef, this is one of the ways it impacts us.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon, and Lieutenant Governor. Appreciate your time. I'm going to follow up on that. You bring up a very good point about the hay. And it does impact every consumer, whether they're a farmer or not. You're absolutely right because of what's happening with the prices and stuff. I talked to the governor. I'm looking at a story I did 3 weeks ago. I talked to the governor at the Missouri Pork Association when he was making his announcement there, and we talked about the drought. And the one thing, he mentioned the hay, and he mentioned the pastures, but he said we've got to do everything we can to get farmers back whole as much as we can to go through the winter. In other words, they're not going to be whole. I'm worried about that, and I know he is too. What can be done to help them?
Well, Brian, the statistic everybody needs to remember is 4 out of 4 people like to eat. And Missouri farmers literally feed and clothe the world. What's going to happen is that they're not going to get too deep in how the cattle industry works, but if you can't find hay, you don't have pasture, you're going to sell your cattle. And the inventory of cattle across this nation is already short. It's about what we call the lots are current. There's no backlog of cattle out there because of droughts and severe weather and issues that we've had out west of us in Colorado, Nebraska, et cetera, other big producing states. So the pricing is definitely going to get affected at the market based on these weather conditions that we've been facing the last couple of years. And so trying to encourage cattle farmers to stay in the business, Brian, is what we're going to have to do. If they sell now because they don't have the pasture to get through the winter with their herd, we're going to have to incentivize them or encourage them to buy back next year, or hopefully this thing gets straightened out, so that we don't lose that all-important beef production that Missouri is so famous for, and that literally thousands and thousands of families rely on. I mean, when you talk about the cattle business, the ripple effect to the feed mills, to the fertilizer stores, to all of the different people that affect that family farm to get that cattle produced is unbelievable. Tens of thousands of people across the state will be suffering if we don't remain strong in that part of our industry.
Missouri's Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Governor's no secret. You're regularly in touch with our congressional delegation in D.C. You know a lot of, not all of them personally. Well, now that we have a speaker there, what would you like to see happen in the short term?
Well, I am super happy. I've actually talked to Jason Smith and Mark Alford, and I do have great relationships with Blaine and Congressman Graves and Wagner, et cetera. I am so happy. I think they're so happy they got a speaker elected. The first thing, John, I think we need to do is make sure we get the resolutions passed that we stand with Israel, period. That has to be done. That has been something we have not been able to do because Congress has not been able to meet, obviously, on the House side. We have to reinforce what our position is and let Israel and the world know that we stand with them. So I would encourage, and I think that will be the first thing you see get done, is some actions and resolutions passed that would support the conflict that we're seeing over there. That's what I'm hopeful is first.
And then our Missouri House Speaker, Dean Plocher. By the way, I did reach out to Dean Plocher the other day via text and asked him for a comment regarding allegations that he was double-dipping as it relates to travel expenses. What is your take on Mr. Plocher's situation right now?
Well, Dean's got, obviously, he has to work with his colleagues in the House and any kind of, ethics committee issues that they might bring up, and he has to be able to explain himself. I, different than a lot of other people, actually talked to Dean, which was amazing to me that, he's going through some tough times, and he reached out to several people who would not return his call and decided to talk about him on social media instead. I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I like to talk to the people who are involved. Dean is a friend of mine. If he did something wrong, if he did something malicious, absolutely positively he should own up to it and take the appropriate necessary actions that might come along with what he did. But I think he needs to be able to tell his side of the story to the Ethics Committee. He is the Speaker of the House. That's a very prominent position. It probably makes, if he did something wrong, even worse. You don't want your Speaker involved in something that's not right. But I think the guy deserves a chance. He was elected by 163 House members to be the Speaker. I think he deserves a chance to be able to get in front of whatever committee they decide to put together to hear what he's been going through and then make a decision. And I trust, and I think Dean does too, in the decision that his colleagues will make based on what's happened.
And now he has already declared for lieutenant governor. We are hearing rumors that potentially Bob Onder might jump in that race. That's one we'll be watching closely. But as Missouri's sitting lieutenant governor, what qualities are you looking for, and what do you think is important, and what's the most important part of your job as lieutenant governor?
Well, yeah, I tell people all the time, we have a lot of different roles in the lieutenant governor's office. Presiding over the Senate constitutionally, I think, is something very important. Being prepared in case something happens to the governor is very important. Governor Parson would tell you that's something that's very important. But outside of that building and those constitutional issues, the number one thing is, in my mind, that we do is the advocate for veterans. Missouri is the fifth largest state with 475,000 men and ladies, heroes that have fought for our country. And taking care of the veterans community and making sure we're doing the best for them, in my opinion, should be the number one thing that the lieutenant governor and any future lieutenant governor wants to do. Obviously, promoting tourism, our second largest industry, is very important. Almost 300,000 Missourians rely on the tourism industry for jobs, so they're going to have to be a good salesperson. They're going to have to want to market Missouri. I think that's a very important part of the job. Taking care of our state seniors, the Buy Missouri program that we just ended, Buy Missouri Week, those are all also very important. Number one to me has always been the veterans, and I hope whoever is successful in that job continues to understand how important it is to take care of those heroes.
By the way, I know you just were as part of a ceremony in Harrisonville, 1251st Transportation Company. There was a departure ceremony. This was in Harrisonville, and so for about a year, these folks are helping out with operations at the southwest border. Appreciate the work you have done with veterans, your work on the Central Missouri Honor Flight. We've got to cut it short there. Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, anything else you want to add, offer us some hope, anything to be of benefit to Missourians?
Keep the men and ladies of the 1251st protecting our border in your prayers. Every state is a border state. We've got to stop the craziness down there. And Branden, congratulations to you. It's been a pleasure to work with you on this program. I wish you all the best in your future, and I know you'll do great.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate that. And by the way, I'm incredibly nervous about tomorrow, if I can admit that to my friends here on the show. Tomorrow is the last show that I'll be a part of. The show is going to go on. The show that I'll say is even going to be better, but I'm just like sick, like this morning. I'm not kidding.
You threatened. No, John, this is the best. I guess he threatened Hannah that maybe he'll just stay home. And we said, oh, we're going to have a lot of fun with that.
No,
yeah, because we're still going to talk about you.
It wasn't.
No, we'll go remote.
Yeah, it wasn't just that he was going to stay home. He's like, what if I test positive for COVID tonight? I'm like, you would do that.
And
all these years of not having a positive COVID test, he would. He would be the one.
And my response, I've had it recently, so I'm immune, so that's not going to get you out of tomorrow. Sorry.
The one cool thing about this when I leave, I get to listen to Wake Up Mid-Missouri now. I've never listened to the show. Now I'll get to listen. Coming up a few minutes from now, that would be all except for this. What can we look forward to, Marsh?
Let's sing. Jeffrey Dahmer's Baloney has a first name. It's Stay Tuned.
to find out. Stephanie Bell will have the futures for you in the morning bell. That's coming up at 8:25.
Who are you going to trust when they're talking about EVs? Are you going to trust politicians, or are you going to trust the people actually in the industry? We're learning more today.
And that would be all, except for this.
Well, wouldn't you know it, a Texas pizzeria facing criticism for a gory-looking pizza named after serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. Capital Pizza restaurant is in Lubbock. They came up with the pizza, the seasonal pizza called the Jeffrey Dahmer Special. It features a pizza crust that's covered with fake blood. There's an eyeball on it, a dismembered finger, and cooked ramen noodles, which they say represents intestines. Restaurant workers say the pizza was created to celebrate the spooky season with Halloween right around the corner. Also inspired by that network series on Dahmer, who murdered and cannibalized men and boys in the 70s into the 90s. And it's receiving mixed feedback, of course, on social media. Some users criticizing the display as disrespectful to Dahmer's victims. That is sick. There is nothing funny about this pizza and the sick things that Jeffrey Dahmer did, which prompts the age-old question, what would you find in Jeffrey Dahmer's freezer? Ben and Jerry. And now you know the rest of that story.
If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube Live right now at Wake Up in Missouri, you'd see Branden is squirming in his chair because he's grossed out.
And I don't know which is worse, crusty old Yeller pillows or a pizza named after Jeff, because Jeffrey Dahmer, he ate his victims, right?
Pretty much.
The ramen noodles are a nice touch.
And I'm also laughing because
I thought that was good too.
Right, because it looks like the stuff, but
innards.
The innards. Because Stephanie Bell always, because I keep my shoes in the freezer because it helps abate odors, and Stephanie says that is the behavior of a serial killer.
It really is, although I guess I'm being fact-checked by that because there's a new article about how much you should wash your denim, and it's less than you might think. And I heard a recent comment that if you're not really supposed to wash it a lot, and if it starts to stink, you're supposed to put your denim in the freezer, and it'll help it not smell.
How about
so
that?
I guess I'd prefer frozen shoes to smelly shoes, so thanks for that.
And what did Jeffrey Dahmer and a Hamas terrorist have in common? Both keep their dates in the fridge.
Dates.
Oh.
Nice.
Dates.
From the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't know where you were going with that one, John.
Yep.
Took me a minute. It's one of the things I love about Wake Up Mid-Missouri. It makes me think, makes me laugh, makes me feel good sometimes. Coming up,
And
Branden.
go work for the AG.
And squirm. Quit it, John. Leave me alone. That's the girl's job to pick on me.
Leave me alone.
Tobler, host Tobler Show, weekday afternoons 4 to 6 here on the radio station. He is going to be joining
I boil them down to individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. Those are the foundations that made us the extraordinary nation that we are. And you and I today are the stewards of those principles. The things that have made us the freest, most powerful, most successful nation in the history of the world. The things that have made us truly exceptional.
Louisiana Congressman, now Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, 7 core values. 2 things that I really liked about this guy, what he said yesterday. These are speeches. I'm from the show me state, still got to show me. But 2 things he said. He said, number 1, these are not just conservative values. These are American values. We say that a lot here on the show. The other thing that I really loved, he said, we are going to show the American people why our policies are best for us as a whole. I'm a big fan of that, too. I think that's what we do here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We say, okay, we're not complaining about President Magoo. These are real things. Here's how it affects you. I think Johnson said that. The other thing I appreciated about Mike Johnson yesterday, stealing some language that we hear from Stephanie Bell a lot.
You're going to see an aggressive schedule.
Every time when Stephanie's out of town, and she's an incredibly busy human being. And she says her schedule is not busy. Her schedule is
aggressive.
Yeah. What's he going to take? What's it going to take for Johnson to get the Stephanie stamp of approval?
Well, I think we know from his past actions and what we've heard from others is that he is a staunch social conservative. Certainly, he would be to the right of where I am on many of those issues. So that has me a little bit concerned that that is going to be his only thing. I would really like to see him come forward and put down his foot on some of the fiscal issues, especially with all the budgetary issues with the funding for the war in Ukraine, all of those things. You know, I'm hoping he is as fiscally conservative as he is socially conservative.
Marsh, what about you in a few words? Your take on the guy?
I think he comes from the right place. I think he seems like a real measured guy and sounds connected and all. For as little as we initially knew about him, sounds like a positive.
Stephanie nailed it yesterday. She said, why haven't we heard about this guy before? And as I'm watching his speech yesterday, I'm like, yes, why have not we heard from this guy before? Randy Tobler hosts the Randy Tobler Show today, 4 to 6, every day, 4 to 6. What was your initial take on this guy?
Wow, where was he back in January? I mean, I loved his speech. I loved the fact that he's unabashed about his biblical beliefs, and it's not about the biblical beliefs necessarily, although I think that's good. But he's not afraid to say what he believes, and those 7 core values. I'd like to see an 8th one, personal responsibility. I think there's an element there that I'm hoping that his leadership might bring back, not only to the way members of the House conduct themselves and the things they say about one another and about, the goings-on of our life. But I'm excited about him. I mean, I gotta throttle back my excitement because I think this is the guy that we've been looking for a long time. Apparently, he gets along with everyone in the caucus. He's got a 90-plus rating with Heritage and with the American Conservative Union. Those are pretty good credentials. So I'm anxious to see what he can do.
And Congressman Mark Alford joined us earlier this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. You can check that on the podcast, KWOS.com, 93.9theeagle.com. By about 10 o'clock, that should be posted. But he said the thing that he personally respected about him was his life of faith. Randy Tobler hosts the Randy Tobler Show weekdays 4 to 6. And I don't like to dig in this bag a whole lot. I am more apt to walk into the studio and say, Randy, what's this spot on my chest or something like that, which has happened, by the way. And somebody I'm in the studio one day and I've got my shirt up somewhere and I got skin cancer or something. And at the most inopportune time, somebody just happened to walk into the studio, closed doors while I got my shirt up, showing them a spot above my right breast. So I don't like to I'm more apt to ask you your personal opinion on a friendship level than I am about stuff on the show. But I want to ask you this. We talk about this pilot that was in the jumper seat, the Alaska Airlines flight out west, and apparently went berserk. He's charged with 80-plus counts of murder now because he tried bringing down the plane. He had some inside knowledge, but apparently chatting about psychedelic mushrooms and psychedelics. Yeah. Story recently in Missouri talking about the value of psychedelics, especially for folks PTSD as it relates to the military. From your medical point of view, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the psychiatric and neurologic community is just sort of on the frontier of how to address the potential use of these psychedelic compounds. And yes, they're derived from mushrooms, but I think they'll eventually and can already be synthesized.
But in a controlled environment, this is the thing I've heard when I've listened to podcasts, read articles by people that are into this. In a controlled environment, the padded room in a research hospital, kind of a vision that, they can be helpful because, these people need to be closely monitored when you're using it for medicinal purposes. But like a lot of psychoactive substances, whether it's our booze or our weed, or in this case, our mushrooms or the other synthetics that people like to access and experiment with and self-treat their various psychiatric maladies, that we're not professionals when we self-treat with these things. And that's why people do things like that pilot.
And
so
I think I understand it. It was like
it under a monitor.
Sorry, I didn't mean to walk all over you,
okay.
Randy.
It's like we have two talk show hosts in the studio at once or something.
Right. Well, and apparently it was like one of his first time taking shrooms. So on an airplane, maybe not the first time, you should be dropping some psychedelics. Local state rep Doug Mann, who was elected a year ago, he is resigning his seat after year, he says, because of depressive issues. Our guest, Randy Tobler, on the Randy Tobler Show.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brandon, we just saw Doug Mann out at the I-70 bill signing. He was out there with the governor, so he'll serve the rest of his term, though, and won't seek re-election. Randy, I am interested. I'm going to go back to what Brandon talked about the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, because I'm a C-SPAN junkie, so I'm very familiar with him. He was on there quite a bit. But he's got a narrow margin. I mean, you're talking about maybe +4. It depends on how many show up, and Santos, what's going to happen to him. So let's just say he's got 3 or 4 if he's lucky. You can't spare any more than that. Realistically, what can he get done as Speaker in this environment? You might as well say it's 50-50 right now.
I think what he can get done is bigger in the long term than the short term. And what I mean by that is if he can be a clarion, resolute, and respectful voice for conservatism and really make the GOP/conservative movement an honorable and respectable one, even for people that may disagree, but say, hey, wait a minute, these people are serious-minded, no more clown show, no more fake news, no more lies and spin. I think that's the sweet spot, not only in whatever can be done in the short term. Maybe he can unite people around common, consensus goals that both parties agree. And I think now both parties agree we need something to do about the border, although the Democrats sat silently when he mentioned border control. But I think that was a political move, not their pragmatic election cycle move. So in the long term, though, that kind of a stance and being with the bully pulpit that the House speakership carries, I want to see a bigger majority that can get something done then, along with a Republican in the White House next year. That's, I think, where that guy can make a big difference, because I think he just seems to have the right constitution, pun intended, and the right spirit of communication. So we'll have to see where it goes. But I think that's the long shot. McCarthy was pretty good at doing that. I think, frankly, the Trump tails brought him down a little bit, the success he could have had in the House. But that's a very important job for the Speaker. And if he's just got to build a bigger coalition.
What do you make of this dust up here in Missouri about the Speaker, Dean Plocher?
I always have a wide window of grace, personally and professionally and politically for people, because in the busy world of politics, I mean, you know it better than I. It's easy. You got a lot of people around you hovering, trying to help, doing things. I can see a person making a mistake once. I can see a campaign staffer making a mistake once, maybe twice. I don't know. I get concerned about that many. It becomes a pattern and not just a one-off after a time. And we know it's going to be played up for it's just going to people are going to try to eat him alive. Look, everyone who runs for office has some problem either currently or in the past, and a skeleton in their closet. You got to be careful, though, and tell your staff early on, man, we can't even afford one decimal point of the appearance of impropriety. This may be very, very troublesome for him. I wonder if that's why Bob Onder's in the race. What about you?
Yeah.
Or thinking about it. He's not in the race, but I've heard he's thinking about it.
Well, he dropped $500,000 into his own campaign, so he's thinking about something for sure. But yeah, I wonder, if if that would invite additional people to try to drop into that race. It's already fair. Holly Rader is also declared in that race. So I think the next step, in my understanding, is there's a House Ethics Committee meeting coming up this week, and I'm not sure whether we'll hear anything out of that or not, but I think that's the next step.
All right. Randy Tobler coming up today, 4 o'clock. It's the Randy Tobler Show, and it's pretty cool. One of the things I like about the show, like, you're heading home from the Capitol after work, or wherever you are. It's kind of like, hey, here's some of the big news stories of the day. Here's what's been going on. Do you know what you're going to be doing this afternoon?
Yeah, Tony Lupo is going to be with us. I understand we've got some crazy weather coming in here on the heels of 2 months of drought. Brian Hansen either is doing mushrooms, pulling my chain, or has been talking to Tony Lupo. I'm not sure. But I walked in the studio yesterday and he said, hey, I'm hearing about snow next week. And I'm like, I got to talk to Tony about that. So we haven't checked with Tony. I heard you talking with Mike Kehoe about the drought. And I'm just curious whether this really is, going to be a trend, just a crazy weather, up and down roller coaster weather. Because he has those long range, binoculars meteorologically, and see what it might mean for the future of Missouri's climate and agriculture and commerce. It's an interesting discussion.
Tony Lupo, atmospheric scientist at Mizzou, and he's a conservative man. The guy seriously gives a straight story. He's an atmospheric scientist, and he gives a straight story when it comes to those things. And I heard the other day, because I always wonder about those long-term forecasts in the Farmer's Almanac and how consistent, how accurate they are. I had a friend, LG Patterson, one of the most amazing photographers I've ever met in my life. He is a photographer for Inside Columbia Magazine and the Zimmer Radio Group. He's taken iconic pictures over the years that have been used in national publications. And he says pawpaws, the pawpaw fruit, something about you split open the pawpaw fruit, and depending on how the seed looks, like if it looks. Are you familiar with this, Mark?
I think it's persimmon. If I'm not,
that
was a persimmon. It was like if it looks like a fork or if it looks like a spoon. Yeah,
I don't know my fruits very well.
And normally, I wouldn't be that bothered by the snow, but I really do. I want to hear from Tony Lupo because I want to know: do I need to get my ski gear out for trick or treating on Tuesday night?
And all right, Randy Tobler, check out his show this afternoon. We love you, brother.
Love you too, and all the best to you in your future, man. Let's stay in touch.
Will do. Coming up a few minutes from now, Morning Bell, business news with a...
Had to think about that one.
I know. I'm trying to figure out where I am. My head is spaced right now. Morning Bell, business news with a little... with a little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Dow futures are sitting just about even. S&P down nearly 0.25%. NASDAQ almost, well, not quite 0.5%. So a little bit of a mixed bag this morning as well. Brandon, is there anything you love doing more than telling people I told you so?
I love calling and complaining about customer service. Although yesterday, I called a Hy-Vee grocery store to compliment a young lady who helped me at a self-checkout. I was having a hard time, and it wasn't me. It wasn't user error, Hannah. It was an issue with the grapes and she was just, I don't know, something about it. When I went home, I went and I called the manager and said, hey, this young lady is to be commended.
Good job with that. Well, this guy is joining you in your I told you so chorus. That's Toyota's chairman. Many years ago, he started really investing in hybrids, and that was where Toyota was going. And he said, this is the future. We're going to do hybrids. Everyone else is like, no, we're all in on EVs. And of course, we know our government has been all in on EVs, trying to pressure people, and they're just not taking off. They are expensive. I think for me, that's the biggest hurdle. I mean, I don't love the idea of a battery. I mean, I have a hurdle with charging things.
She does. But I can confirm when she comes into the studio every morning, it's usually followed by a string of curse words and saying, this isn't charged, that isn't charged, where's my charger?
Curse words and power packs to charge her stuff.
And makeup brushes. But yes, so, I have personal hurdles to EVs, but, they're just not seeing the market, even with all of the pressure from the government that they thought. And so our good friend, the chairman of Toyota, is saying, told you so. You need to invest in hybrids. And I really liked this. He offered some wise words to the auto industry. He said there are many ways to climb the mountain that is achieving carbon neutrality. And I thought that is really, for all of us, a good reminder that, a lot of times people just want to charge straight up the mountain. Sometimes it's a winding path. Sometimes you got to take a different path. And he's saying this isn't the only way, guys. We've got to be, have more creative solutions. And clearly, the market and the consumers they're not there yet. And so they've had really good luck with hybrids, and actually other manufacturers are kind of like, maybe this guy's got a point.
I'm not sure that EVs could charge up a mountain even if they wanted to.
Right.
Well, and the cool thing, because Toyota, John, as I recall, they were like the first one on the hybrid. And here's some other facts as it relates to electric vehicles. General Motors said last week, a story we brought you, they are delaying the opening of an electric pickup truck factory in Michigan. Also, Ford Motor Company considering cutting a work shift at a plant where it builds its electric pickup trucks. And there was some other news as far as Ford plants were concerned. And I think, at least you want to buy an electric car? That's cool, man. If you can afford it, want to charge it, I think that's great. But the problem, the challenge, well, it's beyond a challenge. When President Magoo starts telling you, you're going to have to drive this. And they're not saying you have to drive electric vehicles is what they're doing, like they've done in California. You don't have to. But after 2035, we're not going to allow dealerships to sell internal combustion engines. When you force it, that's the problem.
It really is a problem. And, compounding, Biden's, telling us we need an EV, but really compounding the problem as well, which has nothing, is no fault of the auto industry, are the interest rates, thanks to Bidenomics. And that's making EVs even more
sitting in window seats will board first, before those with middle and aisle seats. It's being done to shave off some time during boarding, and the company says it can save 2 minutes with the change.
And I'm all for it. By the way, it's 8:36. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell. Good morning, Steph.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah.
Hello.
Marsh is here.
Yep.
Brian Hauswirth running around. My name is Branden Rathert. So it's 8:36 right now. We just learned this at 8:34 this morning.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We had no idea. So I'm flying. I'm going to go do the final show tomorrow with Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And then I'm flying. I'm like walking out of the building, walking into the Columbia Regional Airport. Fly to Idaho, goes carve pumpkins with the grandkids. Stephanie, when
And
she
you thought you were leaving us behind.
Guess where Stephanie's going tomorrow when she leaves the show?
On that same flight.
Guess which flight? We're the 12:25 out of the Columbia Regional Airport.
Awkward.
And that's my thought exactly. Because I'm like, man, 9 o'clock, I won't.
And you know how picky she is about who she sits next to on airplanes.
Mm-hmm. So then I said this. I said,
Blame her?
I said, I'm guessing we're going to sit in different sections of the airplane because Stephanie will be in that section of the airplane that's up front, you know.
And there isn't first class on our flight tomorrow, so you were wrong.
How bizarre, John, would that be?
You can't get away from us.
We need to check. By the way, we need to check seating assignments. That is crazy.
What if you guys are sitting next to each other?
Listen, we've been sitting next to each other here for some 3 years on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am willing to, would be delighted to do it for another day.
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about, getting along after tomorrow, so.
Let's move forward.
I'm just glad if Brandon's really cranky, I'll be there to film it.
That'll be funny, man. How cool is that? How interesting is that? Welcome to the show. Somebody else getting ready to get on an airplane. Our friends Hilly and Hart from one of our country stations in the building, Cat Country. There's a dude named Guglielmo Marconi. He is the dude, or was a dude, as John properly says. There was a dude by the name of Guglielmo Marconi. And John, who was Guglielmo Marconi?
He was a feller what invented this here business.
He invented radio.
Yeehaw.
Now every year there's a huge awards ceremony. It's akin. Marconi's are to the radio industry what the Oscars would be to Hollywood. And Hilly and Hart on our sister station, Cat Country, flew to New York. They got onto an airplane, probably had to sit together also. Got on an airplane, flew to New York. They checked into a hotel room and hurried, bustled off to this massive award ceremony. We're talking red carpet and everything. Couple of kids from right here in mid-Missouri at this event, and they won. Can we give these guys a huge round of applause? They join us on the show. Now let's start with Aaron. Aaron, what was your reaction when you heard your guys' name? Because this is against radio stations all across America. What was your reaction when you heard your guys' name called out?
Okay, so I'll be honest. I did not think we had a chance of winning. You know, we were up against 4 other personalities. And, so we've been saying, okay, we got a 20% shot of winning. Well, we all know 20%'s not a whole lot. So I was kind of filming the screen thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. At least we can film this screen. We'll see our names, up there as a nominee, and that'll be fun, and we can take that back. That's as far as I thought it was going to go. It wasn't until they said, and the winner is K.A., and I was like, wait a minute. And they kept going T.I., and I'm like, wait, what? And then they're like, Kevin Hilly and Aaron Hart. I'm like, oh, my, what? And I'm still filming, and then I hear our program director going, that's you guys, go. And so I handed him my phone. And after that, you just kind of blank out. I mean, we were kind of running through the crowd. We hopped up on stage. Here we have all these, basically titans of the industry staring at us. And all of a sudden, we're like, oh my God, we have to make a speech.
Some of the very best all in the industry. And here's a couple of some folks from mid-Missouri.
Fish out of water, basically. It was unlike any other experience I've had.
And Kevin, what was your reaction as you're listening to this unfold?
Honestly, we didn't even have a speech plan. We really didn't. We had no. In fact, it's funny. After we were both up there, it was such an emotional. The impact of that.
We cried.
I kind of. No, I wouldn't say I cried.
We cried.
I
Don't let him fool you.
I misted up a little bit, but I couldn't even remember what I said. I seriously couldn't. I got back, and later on, everybody was saying that was his best speech of the night. And we had like big names telling you. James Brown from CBS Sports was there. Rich Eisen was hosting from NFL Network. I mean, like these are like guys that I really look up to. They're like, you guys were like the best speech of the night. And I was like, really? I don't even know what I said, man. So, but it was bizarre, and it was heart-wrenching. It was surreal. It was an amazing. And now we're sitting here at LaGuardia Airport having breakfast, going like, did that really happen? Was that like some wild dream?
Kevin, if you could talk, and this is great because it's not just about us bragging on some of our fellow radio folks and some folks from mid-Missouri in New York picking up the biggest award that you can get in the radio industry. But I think there's something important here. You guys are recognized for your work. Can you talk for a minute, Kevin, about the importance to the community of local radio?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, that is one of the things that we touched on. I do remember that part of the speech because I've seen it since because it was recorded. That was one of the points that I made was that Hilly and Hart, it's a brand in the sense of people know what to expect and they tune in and everything each morning. But it's the fact that the listeners are very, very much a part of this. They welcome us into their home and into their cars each morning, and they're kind of invested in what we're doing and vice versa. We hear about their lives and everything, and it really is a community endeavor. Aaron, I mean, would you say that that's the right way to put it?
Yeah, we're going to support the people that are supporting us, and that's just how it is. We go out, we do a lot of community events and stuff, and I remember a friend saying, "Oh my gosh, so you guys must be like rolling in the money." No, we don't charge anything. It's a community service, and it's because we love our community and we care about our community, and we want whatever event they're having to succeed. Because if they're having events that succeed, our community succeeds. It's as simple as that.
Well, and I know you had a lot of people cheering you on last night. I was standing in for you at the Rax Gala, and a lot of people knew that you were in New York, and people said, yeah, I've seen Erin's posts and everything, and they were kind of waiting. And when I got to go over and tell some of these folks she won, it was like an eruption. Everyone was celebrating with you. So I hope there are a lot of people here pulling for you and excited for your big win.
Oh, well, first off, Rax is such an amazing organization, and it kind of gutted me when we got nominated because the company goes, hey, we want to send you to New York. And I was like, oh, I've already got plans. I'm going to MC this gala. And they're like, you need to, we're going to need you to pull out of that. We're going to send you to New York. And I was like, well, I hated to do that, but Rax was so cool and gracious. And we're just like, hey, go and, bring us home a win. And, I was going to feel awful, absolutely awful, if I pulled out and came all this way and we came back with nothing. So it's exciting to share that win with them. It really is.
All right, Erin, is there? Yeah.
One of the things, and I've said this for years, is that and please don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing the award. This is incredible, greatest. 40 plus years in this business, the greatest recognition I've ever received. But I will tell you, when it comes to awards. And again, I've said this for years, when we come across people on the street and we're out and about and everything, and people say, oh, man, you're a part of our family. We feel like you're in our family, and, we hear you and we laugh with you and everything. To me, that is an award in itself. It really is, because that means you've touched people. You've made a connection with them. And there's so much radio now, especially sort of, dare I say, corporate. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
where it's not local anymore. Yeah. And they don't have that connection, and we do. And, man, that is something to hold on to. And so this kind of recognition like this is just sort of the cherry on the top.
And I think the importance of local radio, and you talk about corporate radio, not in an effort to to demean corporate radio, but I think, for example, the tornado we had several years ago, and there's local radio nonstop covering what's happening, where you can go, where help is. And I think about local businesses that over the years that local radio has helped, like Rosebud Tractor and Equipment, and Midmo Telecom and Security, and Pro Pumping and Hydrojetting, and people like Atterbury Auction and Realty Company, and Vogel Insurance, helping those local businesses and being a part of the community. Know that we are big fans of you guys. What are you having for breakfast right now?
I'm excited because I had mimosa.
Nice.
All I wanted on this trip was a mimosa, and I finally got my mimosa. It's a $16 mimosa, so there's that.
Yeah. I was going to say, where else do you get $16 eggs and bacon, but at the LaGuardia Airport. But, Aaron just had a pizza, an bacon and egg pizza.
Yeah, I'm enjoying a $22 breakfast pizza. But I got to say, there's some cheese on here I can't pronounce, but it's absolutely delicious.
All right. Hillian Hart from our friends across the hallway here at the Zimmer Radio Group, winning a Marconi for
pretty good
radio show. Congrats.
And this is Aaron's second win in New York City. Aaron just last year won a very prestigious Women in Broadcasting Award, too.
Gracie Award, yes, that's right.
Yeah. I was just here in June, so I'm not going to lie. I know a lot of people like to poo-poo on New York, but New York's been very good to me. It's been very good to Kevin. So I will forever be an honorary New York girl.
We appreciate you guys, man. Safe travels home. Coming up a few minutes from now, we're going to be doing some leftovers. I don't know if this is interesting or not, Steph, but we got talking about this the story about Toyota. And all along, they've been, despite the fact, is to my recollection, one of the first folks to move forward with hybrid cars. But they do not sell, as far as I know, they do not sell an electric vehicle. And they're like, yeah, we're going to hold out and wait. Anyhow, it's kind of an interesting story. But the chairman of the company, his name is Kehoe Toyota. But there's something interesting about his Toyota name. He spells it with a D.
Yeah, so it looks just like the brand name, but with the D.
Yeah. So why is that? I thought it was interesting. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
All right, well, Story in the Morning Bell this morning, 8:25. Every morning, business news, little twist that Stephanie brings you. It's not the old boring, and here's the business report, fun stuff. But it was kind of, and who doesn't love to use the phrase?
I told you so.
Toyota kind of using that now. They're saying, yeah, we're not all in on these electric vehicles. And we're seeing some changes among General Motors and Ford. And we're seeing, by the way, less and less interest from the consumer. And I have nothing against electric vehicles. I wouldn't buy one. You want to buy one, that's fine. The problem is when you are being funneled, being forced to buy them for BS reasons. They're not friendlier on the environment overall. Look it up, Google it, do whatever you want to do. But anyhow, the chairman's name, Kehoe, Toyota, Toyoda. Of course, we spell, when we look at the cars, you spell it
with a T.
With a T, Toyota. And
I thought it was a typo at first, honestly.
Right? So that's kind of the reaction. So apparently the story is, and I have checked this, so I am not CNN. I am not the New York Times. CNN, by the way, apologizing for the story about the hospital blast. So I have double and triple checked this. Toyota Motor Corporation was founded by the Toyota with the D, Toyota family. The word Toyota with a D uses 10 Japanese strokes to write, while Toyota with the T uses only 8. 8 is considered a lucky number in Japanese culture. For these reasons, Toyota with the T was chosen as the company's name.
That's neat.
Drop that on your friends at work and see if they give a crap. What do you got for leftovers?
I can't get over this phone story that you shared. The average lifespan of smartphones is around 2.5 years, but if you're lucky enough to have an iPhone, they're claiming that it's 4 to 8 years. Samsung, not too far behind with 3 to 6 years. But yesterday we talked about crusty pillows, and today we're getting a lot of texts about crusty iPhones. I think Roger said he's texting with his iPhone 7. Angela says her mom has a 5S. I didn't know those things were still around, but that. I think she said that's 10 years ago.
Takes D-cell batteries to run it, right?
The big guy, my dad, had until 2 years ago, he had a flip phone. He had this flip phone for 15 years. No kidding. I thought my Samsung Galaxy S8 at 7 years was impressive. This flip phone, I think it was like a Kyocera or something, lasted 15 years, and finally he went to a smartphone. Marsh, what's in your refrigerator of leftovers?
Well, baseball fans, we just heard Dusty Baker's retiring as manager of the Astros after 26 years and skippered the Giants, I think, most of the time, and unfortunately skippered the Cubbies in there, but he's retiring after things didn't quite work out when the Astros lost to the Rangers in the ALCS.
The other thing we're learning today is that Dean Plocker is supposed to be live on Scott Vaughn's show. And so I'm excited because we have only seen his response on Twitter. So we should have updates tomorrow on what he is saying in response to all of the calls on social media. And I think Kehoe had a very measured response today.
He did.
Governor.
And Dean Plocker, Missouri Speaker of the House, allegations of him double dipping for travel expenses. And Lieutenant Governor Kehoe told us about an hour and a half ago. He said, well, I've talked to him, and he says, I'm waiting to pass judgment. He says, let's wait, because we're seeing some hot takes. It's kind of like CNN or New York Times going with the hot take. Look, Israelis bombed a hospital. And that's kind of how I look at it with some of these things, regardless of what I think about the individual that allegations are being leveled against. We've seen how dangerous that can be with people like CNN and New York Times, the Associated Press. And it's kind of the same thing when you have politicians going out and attacking other politicians if they don't know the facts. It can be dangerous.
Well, and Lieutenant Governor said, hey, before I get on social media, if I know that person, I prefer kind of to have a face-to-face and interact, a phone call. And I think that's, I think that's a respectable way to behave.
And then if I talk to you and I'm like, yeah, it appears these allegations, then have your
then call me on it, or that, then I think it's